Hey everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, and just the other day I was having a little bit of a reminisce on Mass Effect, because that series used to mean a hell of a lot, and for a lot of us, including myself, we grew up with it. Mass Effect was one of the best sci-fi franchises on the market, and at a time was pretty much rivaling Star Wars or Star Trek in terms of being one of the most detailed lores and mythologies ever put together. In terms of the state of Mass Effect right now, there's still kind of so much promise, but following the end of Mass Effect 3 and the disastrous Mass Effect Andromeda, Mass Effect is just in stasis. There are so many great characters, just a phenomenally rich sci-fi world, including everything from how individual bullets for guns are made to race relations between Turians and Quarians. It's kind of strange then that even despite Mass Effect 3 being a notable dud and one of the most disappointing and just gut-wrenchingly bad video game endings of all time, EA went back to the drawing board alongside Bioware, and Mass Effect Andromeda was what we got back. It's kind of strange then that Bioware played it so safe when revisiting everything. Now, Kotaku did publish a very detailed report on how this came to be, infighting between studios and rushed production deadlines prioritizing multiplayer, but it doesn't change the fact that Mass Effect Andromeda was a monumental letdown. With all that stuff in mind, fans and myself have occasionally gone back to look at how things could have gone, and I think I've got a far more fan-pleasing, all-round satisfying vision in mind. This is how Bioware could have saved Mass Effect Andromeda. So, the Andromeda Initiative is formed to take humanity away from the Milky Way and into the Andromeda Galaxy by the billionaire G.N. Garson. It's just kind of handy that this is underway right when Mass Effect 3 concludes, and though the game does show that Garrus' father Castus informed Alec Ryder of the Reaper's invasion after wheels were in motion, it doesn't exactly make the timeline feel any less coincidental. So, let's make it so that the people we play as are a crew of people actually believing what Shepard's been telling them about across the last 3 games. It directly means that we can play as people that reflect the opinions and, vocal talking points that we've all had on forums and social media, and basically the way that we've started to refer to Mass Effect since then can be a playable narrative through the game. Basically, we all need to believe Shepard's past warnings of the Reapers, and we're fleeing the Milky Way to survive. Next up, we can use this crew to directly address the ending of Mass Effect 3. Everyone knows that the end of Mass Effect 3 is one of the most disappointing and talked about endings in entertainment history. The only way to move forward is not to ignore it, but address it head on. Ignoring it only cemented it in history as a true mistake. So let's make the Andromeda Initiative a crew of people who followed Shepard's exploits across the original trilogy. They maybe heard about his visions on Vermeer, believed his warnings about the Reapers, and signed up to do right by a commander that was ultimately ignored by the Council. You might have someone singing Shepard's praises, discussing how he did a phenomenal job with what was presented to him, whilst others could call out the bullshit of space magic, the rumors of a star child, perhaps even a joke or discussion on the indoctrination theory and how unbelievable or plausible it all feels, especially in retrospect. Giving the fans this level of agency within the narrative is something that The Witcher 3 pretty much started with, letting you reframe past events of the games by picking specific dialogue choices, and this doubles as being a way for the fans to essentially directly talk to the developers. They get to put down some of their thoughts as to how they wanted the ending to go, and fans get to respond in tow. I guarantee that going down this route means that any future conversation on the end of Mass Effect 3 would always then be met with, yeah, but that thing that they did in Mass Effect Andromeda, that was cool. Next up, introduce the Archon's experiments and clarify intentions immediately. So the Archon is just bad. He's like this big walking slab of evil intent, and he's just like grey. There's hardly any sort of like real thought being put into his agency in the galaxy itself. And although there are hints that he's experimenting on the Milky Way races to try and find this perfect specimen, that's not the drive or the reason that he exists overall. He's just big, evil, booming, like alien dude that you need to defeat along the way. Overall, though, that idea of him being this like crazy scientist guy that's trying to perfect the ultimate specimen, that makes him kind of evil in this whole, dissecting what you love and respect kind of way, that at least makes him more interesting as an individual, as someone who's thinking through his evil intentions. This totally could have been the Archon's entire purpose. He's pretty much just looking at different races arriving in Andromeda and seeing how much they serve his scientific agenda. That's creepy and cool and way more worthwhile than just evil dude is evil because evil. Next, make Ryder's memories integral to the story or lose them entirely. So in Andromeda, Ryder has a completely optional tie to a series of memories that detail his or her backstory, fleshing out Father Alec Ryder as someone who struggled to balance his work with his home life. Ultimately, these sequences reveal the assumed dead Mother Ryder is actually still alive, albeit in cryostasis. It all points to the real problem with how malleable Ryder is as a character, which doubles as a Bioware problem. Too often they want to write specific characters, which was the ultimate downfall of Mass Effect 3. They pretty much turned Shepard into a specific specific character who was sad about a child dying, even though you might have played him as a total psychopath beforehand. And it means that this approach neither ticks the box of the original trilogy's DIY approach, nor anything remotely satisfying as far as storytelling goes. You can't have both. It has to be one or the other, and BioWare need to realize that. This brings me on to the next point. Let us save Ryder's mother. Speaking of all these memories again, the biggest reveal alongside the fact that Mother Ryder is alive is that there's actually a way to cure her and bring her back. It turns out that Alec Ryder actually placed Ellen into cryosleep under the assumption that a cure could be created at some point in the future. It's this idea that actually points you to the cryosleep pod in the first place, and you get to have a admittedly terribly animated sequence where both of the Ryder twins get to finally talk to their mother again. The facial animation's barely there. It's really not good, but the meat of that conversation points to the idea that, Mother Ryder can be resurrected, and that could have gone on to be the ultimate thing that you do in the game. The thing that you bring back and the reason that you want to play as Ryder, because you're, resurrecting your dead mum. All of this brings me back to overarching stuff, and the next big point is that we needed a whole ton of new aliens, technology, and environmental designs. Okay, seriously? How did BioWare think that it's worth going to a new galaxy? You're going to go down that whole art direction thing, and the only thing that makes it into the game that's, symbolizes or, points to a new galaxy of potential is some floating rocks. That's all there is. Alongside this, there are literally only 4 new races, of which only 2 have faces, a smattering of planets ranging from deserts to neon jungles and ice planets, and alien weaponry that extends to such outside-the-box visuals as beam weapons. Lasers. Now, all of this is obviously a huge bunch of stuff to fix, but the general approach to a new galaxy should have felt as much. The Ket will occasionally turn into mist versions of themselves, which is, cool, but where's the actual art direction that showcases the approach across the board? Alien ships should have moved and flown in a way that breaks our understanding of physics. Enemies maybe didn't walk on 2 legs and could have spoken with a mouth that was anywhere other than their face. I mean, come on, this is something that even No Man's Sky did at launch in 2016 when the whole world hated it. And number 1, the biggest thing, somewhat obviously, fix the animations. Now, this is the ultimate fan says thing that people on the developer side are just going, we tried. But, it's just going to come down to that. They should have had more time to perfect the vision that they were putting out. But overall, there's just no real excuse or justification for glitches that look like this. Back to the development side, and I do understand the reality that it was Mass Effect 3's multiplayer team that were actually given full reign of the whole game. So they basically had to go from designing combat scenarios to trying to make a full Mass Effect game. But again, you've got characters walking around like they kind of need to go to the toilet, and the general look of conversation animation just, it's completely unfinished. I mean, a lot of us who followed the project know that after a few months of being on retail, they did put out a gargantuan patch that fixed the vast majority of the faces, or at least made them look a bit better. But at launch, this thing was a laughing stock, and one of the reasons that a lot of people are so negative on the project overall is because their first impression was just so bad. From ape-like arm-dragging walking animations to contorted faces, blank stares during emotional moments, and characters straight up levitating out of frame mid-conversation, there's a marked lack of polish across the board that at least makes someone like Bethesda know that it's not just them. The biggest thing that EA and BioWare needed to get right, the biggest thing that could have saved Mass Effect Andromeda, is this first impression and this level of polish. It just needed more time in the oven, and it should never have been churned out. So with all that in mind, let me know what you think down in the comments below. As a huge Mass Effect fan, I always want to try and give the games the benefit of the doubt. Let me know what you think. Check out the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast too. I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com, and I'll catch you soon. Bye.